A lot of people have noticed something kind of off with Pixar movies lately. The studio that used to be the absolute king of digital animation is suddenly struggling to land a new hit. And there's actually a pretty convincing theory why. Let's get into it. When you watch an animated movie, what do you actually focus on? Probably the plot, the action, the dialogue. I mean, you have to pay attention to that stuff to follow the story or you'll get lost. But have you ever watched a movie where the story was fine, like it was entertaining, but you walked away feeling empty? You might not be a filmmaker or a professional critic, but you know something was wrong. It's like it registers in your subconscious. See, even while we're focusing on the dialogue, our senses are picking up on a ton of other stuff, editing, framing, and especially art direction. And it seems like these things, subtle for the general audience but crucial for the vibe, are exactly why Pixar, the most successful animation studio ever, has kind of lost its magic recently. There's a theory that's been floating around the internet for a few months, and it all starts with a Grubhub commercial. You know the one those characters doing that weird jiggly dance? It came out in 2020, went viral, and, well, the characters are ugly. It looks like the designs were rushed. Everything looks generic. That level of animation would be unacceptable for a big budget movie, but for a 5-second ad where you don't need to emotionally connect with the characters, it's fine. It might even be funny. It definitely gets stuck in your head. Well, people started noticing that right around 2020, Pixar started making movies with character designs that look suspiciously similar to that commercial. You can tell by the lack of sharp angles, everything is rounded. The bodies look like they have no joints or skeletons, like I said, very gelatinous. But the biggest giveaway is the bean mouth, that CalArts style you see in shows like Steven Universe, where the character's mouth doesn't end in an angle, but just a harmless curve. Actually, a lot of 2D cartoons lately use this style. The Pixar movies that people have flagged for this look are Luca, Turning Red, and Elio, plus the series Win or Lose. And yeah, they do look more like generic 3D animation rather than that classic Pixar style. You just have to compare them. Classic Pixar style was born for one reason: software limitations. Since they were the first studio brave enough to make a full 3D feature film, there was a ton of stuff they couldn't do. That's why they had to stick to toys as main characters. Humans barely showed up because the early designs were pure nightmare fuel. For years, Pixar kept humans as background characters. It was always, what if these objects or animals could talk and go on adventures? These limitations forced them to get creative. Every movie meant building a new physics engine or doing exhaustive research on how specific materials moved, which resulted in a totally unique visual style. But time passed, computers got too good, and suddenly there were no limits. We started seeing humans taking the lead, bringing us into what people call Pixar's human era. Since Coco, almost every new story has had human protagonists. They still have fantasy elements, but those have taken a back seat. Maybe this, combined with perfect software and hardware, made them stop experimenting with new art forms. And that's why these latest movies are hard to distinguish from any other studio. They could easily be a DreamWorks project or even generic Disney. The only thing we know for sure is that there was an intentional shift away from the classic Pixar look, and only they know why. It just happens to coincide with an era where their original movies, the ones that aren't sequels or spin-offs, are struggling to even break even at the box office. Sure, there's a general decline in Hollywood, and some of these went straight to streaming, but it makes you wonder, how much does changing the art direction affect a brand that was so deeply rooted in pop culture? What do you guys think? Why did a group of lawyers literally make a musical begging people not to use certain words? This story is wilder than it sounds. We all had that kid in elementary or middle school who got a nickname on day one that made zero sense, but it stuck so hard that eventually you forgot their real name and even the teacher started using it. That's actually a perfect example of how language evolves with culture, where the words we use every day actually come from. Sometimes, even if there's a technically correct word for something, we just use a different one until it sticks. And you wouldn't believe how many words we use daily that don't come from Latin or some ancient language, but literally came from a brainstorming session of ad execs. They are totally made up words. We're talking classics like Kleenex, Scotch tape, jacuzzi, Tupperware. I guarantee you've used these words a million times. They started as brand names. It's way easier to say those than disposable facial tissue, adhesive cellophane tape, hydro massage bath, or hermetic plastic fruit container, and you're not alone. In fact, words like Kleenex, jacuzzi, and Tupperware are officially in the dictionary now. These are words that got adopted so hard they replaced the original term. But it's not just those. Words you wouldn't expect, like Band-Aid, dumpster, yo-yo, ping pong, zipper, those belong to brands. Same with nylon, Velcro, Teflon, Vaseline, aspirin, thermos, all invented for a brand but slipped into common language because, let's be real, they're practical. If a word was invented to be catchy and easy, obviously people are going to use it. But what happens when you cross the line? Some of these words get used so much they stop being considered a brand. They lose their exclusivity and formally enter the language. This depends on the laws in each country, but one of the most famous cases is aspirin, the meds created by Bayer. Now, any generic brand can use the name aspirin. If the public decides a word refers to the thing and not the brand, the law of primary significance kicks in and the trademark dies. It's basically suffering from success. You get so big, you destroy your own IP. In aspirin's case, it was geopolitical. Bayer, a German company, was forced to give up the rights as part of the Treaty of Versailles in 1909. Note, this applied to the US, UK, and France. In other countries, it's still a trademark. On the other hand, yo-yo, thermos, and cellophane went through the legal ringer and officially became generic terms. Until recently, Marvel and DC actually co-owned the trademark for the word superhero, but they lost it in late 2024. This happened after they tried to sue a creator for a comic called Super Babies, and they lost. That ruling was historic and has a lot of brands sweating. How many times have you said, "I'm gonna Google that"? Well, Google hates when you do that. If it's proven that people use it as a generic verb enough, they could lose their trademark. The risk goes up when people start modifying the word, like making it plural. For example, instead of Lego bricks, people say Legos. Courts look at all that stuff. Some brands have tried to get ahead of this by straight up asking people to stop saying their name, which is confusing. Xerox once ran an ad campaign telling people not to use Xerox as a verb when making a photocopy. Which brings us back to the start. The brand Velcro released a music video where their legal team explains the whole situation with a ton of passion, harmonies, and choreography, imploring people to stop saying Velcro so emotionally. It's an absolute gem. I don't know if it saved their trademark. I mean, we all see that hook and loop tape and immediately think Velcro, but at least they had a sense of humor about it. What brand names do you think should just become generic words? Any I missed? Drop a comment. This is what a traffic jam looked like a few decades ago. In contrast, this is what it looks like now. You don't have to look hard to see the difference. It's like at some point the colors just vanished. This isn't a Mandela effect or two cherry-picked photos. There are studies proving how car colors have changed. Since 1950, colorful tones have been dying out, replaced by scaled grays. There are a few reasons for this. Manufacturers might keep less stock, offering just 3 basic colors to streamline production. Or it could just be pop culture. Maybe people just don't vibe with driving an orange car or a yellow Beetle anymore. But behind this sad beige trend, there's an invisible problem that's actually huge and affects us all. Can you guess what it is? These boring cars are helping to cook the planet. In 2011, they did an experiment with 2 identical cars, one silver white and one black. They drove them around a city under the sun all day. By the end, the surface of the black car was 45 degrees 25 degrees hotter than the white one. That translates to a way hotter interior, not just for the driver, but for the engine too. Black cars and dark gray ones have a much lower reflection percentage. If you look at photos from back in the day, black cars were rare. They were for cop cars, the FBI, or Batman. Having a dark color that traps heat means you blast the AC more, which burns more gas, and generally makes the car deteriorate faster. It seems small for one car, but imagine the heat island effect when you add up the entire urban sprawl plus the asphalt, which also loves to hoard heat. It turns the city into an oven, forcing us to use more electricity and pump more CO2 into the air. So, what can we do? Car makers aren't going to stop offering free basic colors like black while making you pay extra and wait longer for a cool color. So we need alternatives. Lately, researchers have been developing special pigments that allow dark paint to reflect visible light and near-infrared radiation instead of turning it all into heat. In 2024, a university in Hong Kong created a coating that can actually cool a surface below ambient temperature, even with dark colors. Once that hits the market, we won't have to paint everything white or silver. These coatings could go on buildings and anything outdoors. As for the pavement, Phoenix, Arizona has been testing a reflective treatment called Cool Seal, made of mineral fillers, polymers, and soap, and it reduced pavement temperature by up to 12 degrees C after peak heat. So, solutions exist. But I forgot something important. What if I'm a goth or a metalhead and I wear all black, even during a heat wave? Am I contributing to climate change? Not necessarily. Look at people who live in deserts. Many wear dark robes. Science says that while black clothes absorb radiation and get hot, and white clothes reflect it, that applies to your body heat too. If you wear white, your body heat reflects back onto your skin. With loose black clothing, the body heat is absorbed by the fabric, and if there's a breeze, it gets carried away, keeping you cooler. So yeah, that's why some people can rock black hoodies in 100-degree weather. Pro tip, stick to natural cotton rather than polyester, which traps heat like crazy. Do you guys prefer a more colorful world like the old days, or do you like the minimalist aesthetic we have now? Let me know in the comments. Imagine for a second that your arm was a totally different person, specifically a clone of you but independent, or that your stomach was a different organism and your lungs were another and you were just a coalition of clones working together to stay alive. Sounds weird, right? Well, there's an animal that is literally just that, and it's everywhere. You've probably seen one. This is a Portuguese man of war. It got that name because someone thought it looked like those 15th century sailing ships. Personally, I would have called it a forbidden jelly dumpling. And yeah, this isn't a single animal. It's a colony of organisms called zooids that share the same DNA. That's why they're clones. But they need each other to survive because each one has a specific job. One captures prey, one digests it, one handles reproduction, and the one on top, the balloon part that floats, uses gas to help them sail across the ocean. Because they adapt easily and reproduce efficiently, they live almost everywhere. Usually, if they wash up on a beach, they do it in groups of thousands. People often call them blue bottles or just jellyfish, but the name man-o'-war fits because they're dangerous. Their tentacles release toxins that can paralyze a large fish and leave nasty, painful welts on humans that last for weeks. For some people, the allergic reaction can be serious. So, these things are jellyfish. They are this strange collective thing. But back to the United Clones part. You're probably wondering, what happens if you separate them? Do they find each other and link up like Voltron? Definitively no. You can't take a man-o'-war apart. Even though theoretically each part is an organism, they share fluids and depend on each other for food. They grow that way. They don't just meet up at a bar and decide to join forces. Fun fact, there's a fish called the man of war fish that likes to live inside the tentacles because it's immune to the toxins, using the colony for protection. It makes you wonder if the fish is technically part of the colony too. As for us, while we have unicellular organisms inside us, our actual cells, like a neuron, can't survive on their own outside the body. So technically we aren't a colony. But we do rely on our gut microbiome to digest food. So the definition of individual versus collective is kind of blurry. If you think about it, human society is just a colony of organisms. We rely on division of labor. Someone had to grow, process, and cook the food you ate today. And even though we aren't clones, we share information via culture and language. And if we want to get really deep, life on Earth is one big community. We depend on cooperation. Earth depends on gravity and the sun. The sun depends on the Milky Way. Galaxies interact with each other. So basically, this slimy, stinging balloon thing is a metaphor for the entire universe. Hey, maybe I went a little too hard on the philosophy there. Every time you think about buying something, from a coffee to an iPhone or a car, a psychological war kicks off between you, a normal consumer, and multi-billion-dollar corporations ready to use every trick in the book to get your money. You might have noticed, depending on where you live or what apps you use, that now you can buy basically anything, even a pack of gum, in installments. And if you haven't seen it yet, it's coming. I'm not talking about traditional credit cards. I'm talking about buy now, pay later, BNPL services like Klarna, Afterpay, or Affirm. They pay for you and you pay them back in slices like a pizza. Some even offer zero interest if you pay on time. To get months without interest on a credit card, you usually need a credit check and you have to be buying something expensive, like a fridge. But with these apps, anyone can do it instantly for products of any price. As you can guess, this leads to doom spending, because if you can get something today for a fraction of the price, you forget that future you is the one who has to pay for it. It's the TikTok Shorts version of finance, maximum instant gratification, minimum effort right now. But what do they gain if they don't charge interest? What's the catch? It's actually way more evil than you think. It seems easy at first, but as you stack up these micropayments, suddenly you have a massive monthly bill you didn't account for. You become way more likely to miss a payment. And when you do, the interest rates and late fees are absurd. You stop being a consumer and start being a debtor, but these companies don't just make money off people who fail. The stores themselves pay them a fee around 3% just to integrate the service, so they profit up front. And when a huge pile of user debt accumulates, they package it up and sell the debt to collectors so they don't even have to worry about it. Plus, they harvest data on your spending habits and income, which is gold for corporations, and they are targeting people who don't have credit cards or good credit scores, a huge untapped market. It's not just apps. In places like Mexico, stores like Electra or Coppel have been doing this for years, selling you a washing machine for 150 small weekly payments where you end up paying double the price. Or those predatory payday loans. All these options can have benefits if used with insane discipline. But let's be real, who has that? You need financial literacy, and schools don't teach that. You have to learn to track expenses and not spend more than you earn, or it snowballs out of control. It's hard because they use every psychological trigger against us. It's like the marshmallow test, where they tell kids if they wait 15 minutes, they get 2 marshmallows. Most kids just eat the first one immediately. Modern life is just one giant daily marshmallow test. And only the people with the most self-control survive.